I'm Kate Ward, and this is your Dickman Farms Smart Gardening Tip. I'd like to talk a little bit about pollinators. So we always want to save the pollinators and do this and that, but what do you really kind of need to do to help pollinators? Well, believe it or not, the best thing they need is habitat. So habitat loss is one of their greatest things that affects them. Obviously, we know that things like chemicals and pesticides they're sensitive to, but they're also very sensitive to habitat loss. So if they don't have a home, they can't live, breed, multiply, and have you enjoy them by getting just their beautiful presents like butterflies and hummingbirds, or their benefits like what the bees do to pollinate and give us the fruit that we eat and enjoy. So that said, what does habitat look like? Well, habitat would include places to nest or lay your eggs, places to raise young. So whether or not that young is going to eat that plant or eat the insects that are living on other plants, or to eat the seed heads. Those are all the things we have to pay attention to. So habitat for that place to live maybe is going to be something that is like a place to build that nest that's protected, that's safe. So think about those things as you start to say, well, what can I do to keep the pollinators around and to help them enjoy the area? Another thing we want to think about is length of bloom time for the food sources for the pollinators that need a nectar source. So believe it or not, that's hummingbirds, that is bees, that is going to be things like moths. They're going to be, what else do we have? Hummingbirds, butterflies. So all of those need some sort of nectar source. So as adults. So that said, we want to have a long bloom time. So pay attention. Do I have a spring bloomer, a summer bloomer? Maybe my neighbor has a summer bloomer and I'll get a fall bloomer. So all those things are going to create a food source through the season for all of those pollinators. Now, those food sources, let's talk about them. So believe it or not, we're going to have some damage on our plants on purpose in that habitat. There are certain things like this grass right here, all right? This is a switchgrass, and believe it or not, this is a host plant for some of our butterfly larvae. So you want to include things like this in your garden, or perhaps this false indigo. This is Baptista. Now this happens to be a yellow form, but both of these are examples of host plants. Those are things that the caterpillars are going to eat, and that's okay. Meanwhile, if you like songbirds, on a side note, they like to eat caterpillars. So if you have these, you're actually bringing in your native habitat to get this whole good ecosystem that you get going in your backyard. Well, let's talk a little bit about bloom time then. So I might have some spring bloomers, and maybe there are even bulbs, like crocus bulbs that come up really early. You'll see early bees out there pollinating away. That's their early food source to get going. Then maybe coming on columbine, that comes up later, or maybe creeping phlox. Well, then we get to things like summer, like where we're headed now. So things like cone flowers. So here's an orange form, here's a red form, that daisy type flower, that's a good nectar source for butterflies and bees and that type. But there's also things like bushes, believe it or not. So here is a clethra. This plant here, this is going to bloom in summer, so like July. It's just starting its little spikes here of flowers, and for your benefit, not only is it good for that summer pollinating critters, it gets good fall color, and it's very fragrant. So you have this wonderful fragrance to the summer garden when you're out there. There's a lot of other things to enjoy. There's things like this guy here. This is a native for us. This is actually a blue form of perennial lobelia. There's, whoops, bye, disappearing, ta-da! There's this one. It's the same flower you can kind of see, but this has got this sort of maroony red, sometimes called cardinal flower because that reddish color. So there's lots of choices out there to help you develop an entire habitat to support your pollinators, so you're doing good, being good. As always, if you need us, we're right here, and this has been your Dickman Farms Smart Gardening Tip.